Hey, what's up? You're here today with Nick the Informative Fisherman, and today we're going to be discussing Bass Lure Basics Part 2. There was a few lures we didn't go over in the first video, so today we're going to be filling in the blanks for you and discussing all the rubber worms and a few other lures that we didn't go over the first time. Okay, first off we have your swim baits. Now swim baits are generally used in clearer water, and if you're trying to isolate the gigantic bass from your smaller bass. Say you put 5 in your live well already and you got 3 hours to kill and you want to swap out one of your smallies with a real monster. So you can switch over to a big rainbow trout swim bait imitator. I know this thing's an absolute giant by just looking at it right there, but it will produce, and when you want to fish these guys in clear water, and you want to swim it over the top of the bass's head and to the side of trees and laydowns. You don't want to throw these things directly through cover. You want to get the bass to actually chase it out and go get it. And you can really produce a large fish in this. This is a slower lure. I mean, you can't expect to produce mass amount of numbers of bass fishing this way, but the ones you do get will be absolute monsters. So clear water, windy days are generally ideal. Okay, now we have a scum frog. Now there's a few different types of these guys. You have the little rats and you have the frogs. And what these guys are for is when you see matted grass, something that you really can't cast any other lure through, you throw this guy almost all the way to the shoreline and you twitch him back, just like a frog hopping in, over the top of that matted grass. And the bass sitting under there are looking straight up for these guys, and now and then this will hit a little hole in the mat, and they'll lean back and they'll see these legs working through there, and the bass will slam these guys. Very aggressive. This is an absolutely fun lure to use. You want to use braided line. I don't use anything less than 60-pound test. Some guys use 80. In the braid you can get a thinner diameter, and what the braid will also help you do without breaking the line is it'll help cut through that matted grass, and you won't be dragging as much weight back with you to the boat. Okay, now here we have inline spinners. Lots of guys use inline spinners in river situations where there's a strong current and your spinner bait will get turned all around. Inline spinner is a more compact type of little spinner bait that you can toss in there. Primarily these are used for smallmouth and river system, although I've caught plenty of largemouth on these guys. Okay, now here we have chatterbaits. Chatterbaits are relatively new to the market. Lots of bass fishermen don't like them. They think it's just one of those new gimmicks. But I'll tell you honestly, I've used these for swim jigging and they work pretty good. This little white one up here, it's a good shad imitator. This little lip on the front, this is what makes a chatterbait what it is. You can arc it back or arc it down forward to hang in the strike zone, and it gives you a real ting, 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 little fast flutter, and it really gets the bass attention. When the bass are active, you can really slam them with these guys. The white makes a great shad imitator, and what I did on this one here is I threw a red skirt on, and I laced the chatterbait here with a LPT crawdad, which is the live prey technology crawdad, and it's absolutely fantastic. It really simulates that crawdad swimming backwards, that real fluttery action that they have. Okay, now we're getting into our soft plastics. What we have here is a brush beaver. This is one from Bass Pro Shops. This is a very tiny guy, as you can see in comparisons with my finger. Real tiny. Primarily these guys are used for flipping, getting up against the shoreline, rigging it Texas rig style, and tossing it up in there right into the edge of the tules and just letting it sink down to the bottom, penetrating what little cover there is on the top. Okay, now here we have the lizard. You won't see too many bass fishermen frequently using the lizard. What lots of guys like to do with the lizard is Carolina rig these things. And if you don't know what a Carolina rig is, I suggest you look it up, but I'll give you a very simple, quick explanation. It's rigging a line with just a line leader up into where the sliding weight doesn't get down to your line. So when the weight drops down to the bottom, you still have your line hanging, and it can hang right off the bottom, giving you a really nice, slow presentation. And these little lizards like this have lots of little tiny legs, and they can really cause the bass to bite when they are just really lethargic. Okay, here we have a swim leech. You don't see people use these too often either. I've actually found in local ponds and lakes where the bass are just really shallow, I Texas rig this thing and I bury the tip of the hook into the worm, hooking it weedless, and I drag that Texas rig across the bottom. And when bass get finicky, this is quite a good producer. Here we have a brush hog. A brush hog is also known for a flipping plastic. I don't know too many guys to rig these any other way but for flipping. They're pretty good. They're a nice, they come pretty large ones that you can get, and they just hooking it without any weights, I've been able to penetrate cover and matted grass and just let this slowly fall through. With a ton of presentation like this, it can produce you some nice fish. Okay, now we're getting into our worms. What we have here, this is a zoom trick worm, and what pretty much defies a trick worm from other worms is it has fatter ends. As you can see, the ends are fat and narrow in the middle. One of the most common ways to rig a trick worm is actually wacky style, where they put the hook right in the middle, so when you retrieve the worm it does this the whole time, real slow. And this is a very popular worm that they use in South Florida. For some reason over there in Florida it's hard to beat a zoom trick worm. Next we have the well-known Senko. Senko is a stick worm. Stick worm just meaning it's a very straight worm. It's not a swim worm, doesn't have the tail on it. Lots of guys flip these, lots of guys drop shot these, Carolina rig them, Texas rig them. These are a very versatile worm used in all lakes, all river systems. This is one of the most well-known worms on the market, and these guys pretty much always produce. And remember, if you're fishing sparkle, the water needs to be dirty. Clear water, no sparkle. Next we have a wave worm. Wave worm floats a little bit better than a Senko, to where if you want to Carolina rig this thing, you know, once it hits the bottom, it'll really hover there. It's another stick bait. It's a really thick worm, really spongy, and the salt impregnation in these things are fantastic. The bass hang on to these guys quite well. You can flip them too because they're large. You can throw these on your bait casting tackle. You don't really have to switch over to spinning too often if you're having a problem casting lighter lures. Next down is a actual swim worm. Most guys faded away from these guys lately. You don't see too many guys fishing swim worms. What they like to do, Rick Clunn used to fish these guys a lot. They put a bullet weight in the front, and you just cast this out and reel it in real slow, and this worm will really swim around and produce some great fish for you. I'm not sure why guys have been fading away from it lately. Probably because you have to fish it finesse style a little bit and get it down slower, but you can fish this worm a lot faster than you can fish pretty much any other worm on the market. And a big swimmer tail like this will keep the worm up high. The smaller one, you can fish the worm a little bit faster and a little bit deeper. Okay, moving on to the tube. Tube is very common for flipping. Lots of guys like to lead head these guys, rig them up, you know, with the lead in the middle and the hook dropping out the side, and fish deep water for smallmouth bass in these guys. You can flip them around boat docks or right into the thick of the trees with some real heavy mono or braid, whatever you want to do to toss these in there. They fall every which direction, so making multiple pitches with these guys is great because every time you hit, you never really know where it's going to shoot off. It's a great lure. It's really been on the market for a long time, and tubes have always been really well known in bass fishing competitions. And that's it for Bass Lure Basics Part 2. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment on the YouTube page, or you can email me at my personal email. I have that posted at the end of all my videos.
When it's free up, we got a river and swim. When we go fishing, we catching a brim. When the river's on, we jump off the bridge. When we get home, we play some Leech. When it's free up, we got a river and swim. When we go fishing, we catching a brim. When the river's on, we jump off the bridge. When we get home, we play some Leech.